Captain Jake Morrison stood at the bridge of the U's Harmony, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. The station looked like a giant flower made of metal and light, with 12 different sections spreading out from the center. Each section belonged to a different alien species that ruled the galaxy together. "First time seeing anything like this, Captain," said Dr. Lisa Parker as she joined him at the viewing window. She was a small woman with curious eyes who had spent years studying alien life forms. Today, she would finally meet them face to face. "It's bigger than 3 of our cities put together," Commander Ryan Brooks added quietly. He was a tall man with sharp eyes who noticed everything around him. His job was to keep everyone safe, but also to watch and learn about these aliens and their military strength. Ambassador Helen Carter walked onto the bridge wearing her best formal suit. She had gray hair and kind eyes, but Jake knew she was one of the smartest people Earth had ever produced. Her job was to get humanity accepted into the Galactic Council, no matter what it took. "Remember everyone," Helen said in her calm voice. "We are here to make friends. These species have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. While we just learned how to leave our solar system 50 years ago, we need to be humble and respectful." Jake nodded, but something felt wrong about the whole situation. The aliens had found Earth 6 months ago and immediately invited humanity to join their council. It seemed too easy, too quick. But the leaders back on Earth wanted this badly. They said humanity needed alien technology and protection to survive in the dangerous galaxy. "Incoming transmission from the station," Lieutenant Sam Collins announced, from his communications post. He was young but very good with languages and codes. "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The screen showed a tall, thin creature with skin that looked like blue crystal. It had 4 arms and eyes that glowed with inner light. When it spoke, its voice was musical but somehow felt cold. "Welcome, primitive humans, to Station Unity. I am Chancellor Veltar of the Zephyrian people. We are pleased that your young species has finally reached the stars. Please dock at port 774. You will be escorted to the council chambers where we will discuss your future in our galaxy." The transmission ended and Jake felt his jaw tighten. Something about the way the alien said primitive humans and young species bothered him. It sounded like a teacher talking to small children. "Did anyone else notice how he called us primitive?" Ryan asked quietly. "He's not wrong," Helen said quickly. "Compared to them, we are primitive. We need to accept that and show them we can learn and grow." Jake wanted to argue, but he stayed quiet. Helen was right about their mission. They were here to join the council, not to fight with them over words. The Harmony slowly moved toward the docking port. Jake could see other ships from different species already docked at the station. Some looked like giant insects made of metal. Others were smooth and white like pearls. One ship looked like it was made of living wood with branches growing from its sides. "Look at those designs," Lisa whispered with excitement. "Each species has completely different technology. The scientific knowledge we could gain here is incredible. As long as they're willing to share it," Ryan muttered. The docking process took an hour. When it was complete, Jake gathered his team in the main corridor. Besides Helen, Lisa, and Ryan, he brought along Sam and 6 other crew members. They all wore their best uniforms and carried gifts from Earth. "Remember," Helen said one more time, "we smile, we bow when appropriate, and we agree to whatever they offer us. Our job is to get humanity into the council. Everything else can be negotiated later." The airlock opened and they stepped into the station. The corridor was huge, with ceilings 50 feet high. The walls were covered in strange writing from different alien languages. The air smelled like flowers and metal mixed together. 2 creatures were waiting for them. One was another. Zephyrian like the Chancellor, but smaller and wearing different robes. The other was massive, about 8 feet tall, with thick armor-like skin and 4 arms ending in sharp claws. Its head looked like a cross between a beetle and a shark. "I am Counselor Zex High," the Zephyrian said in that same musical voice. "This is Enforcer Crixtol of the Vorthek. We will escort you to the council chambers." Helen stepped forward and bowed slightly. Thank you for this honor. We are grateful for your welcome. The Zephyrian's eyes flickered with something that might have been amusement. Of course you are. Come, the council is waiting to examine your species. Jake didn't like the word examine, but he followed as they walked through the station. The corridors were filled with different aliens going about their business. Some floated in the air using anti-gravity devices. Others walked on 6 legs or slithered along the walls. A few looked almost human, but with different colored skin or extra eyes. So many different species, Lisa said with wonder. 63 species belong to the council, Zexhai explained. 12 of them sit on the ruling council. The others serve in various capacities according to their abilities and development level. What determines the development level? Helen asked politely. Intelligence, technology, military strength, and usefulness to the greater good, Crystal answered in a voice like grinding stone. Some species are natural leaders. Others are better suited to serve. Ryan's face went hard at those words, but he stayed quiet. They reached the council chambers, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 different sections surrounded a central platform, each one designed for a different species. The Zephyrian section was made of crystal and light. The Vorthax section looked like a military fortress. Another section seemed to be made of living plants that moved and grew as they watched. The human delegation may approach the center platform. A voice announced from somewhere in the room. Helen led them to the center, and Jake felt like they were specimens being studied in a laboratory. 12 different alien species looked down at them from their elevated positions. Some seemed curious, others bored, and a few looked disgusted. Chancellor Veltar rose from his crystal throne. Humans of Earth, you have requested membership in the Galactic Council. This is a great honor for such a young species. Tell us, what can your people offer to our ancient and wise civilization? Helen stepped forward with a warm smile. Honored Chancellor, we offer our dedication to peace, our willingness to learn, and our desire to contribute to the greater good of all species. We have brought gifts of our art, music, and literature to share with you. Several of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. One of them, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. How charming! The primitive humans offer us stories and songs. We also have some scientific achievements. Lisa said carefully. Our medical technology has made great advances in recent years. Medical technology? Veltar asked with interest. What diseases can your primitive science cure? Lisa looked uncomfortable. We've made progress with cancer, heart disease, and several genetic disorders. Fascinating, the jellyfish creature said. We solved those problems 3,000 years ago. But it's sweet that you're trying. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. These aliens weren't just dismissive, they were being deliberately insulting. But Helen shot him a warning look, and he forced himself to stay calm. We understand we have much to learn, Helen said graciously. We're hoping the Council will guide us toward a better future for humanity. Indeed, Veltar said. We have discussed your application, and we are prepared to offer you membership. However, given your primitive state, you will begin at the lowest level of membership. You will serve the Council in whatever capacity we deem appropriate. In return, we will protect your species and perhaps share some basic knowledge with you. Helen bowed deeply. We are honored by your generous offer. Excellent, Veltar said with satisfaction. Your species will be assigned to mining operations, transportation duties, and basic maintenance tasks. You will receive food, shelter, and protection in exchange for your service. Jake's jaw dropped. They were being offered slavery with fancy. Words wrapped around it. But Helen just smiled and nodded. We accept your gracious terms, she said. The council members made more sounds of amusement and satisfaction. They clearly thought they had found a new group of servants who would work for almost nothing. Welcome to the Galactic Council, humans. Veltar announced. May your service bring honor to your primitive species. As they were escorted back to their ship, Jake walked beside Helen. Did we just agree to become their slaves? he whispered. Helen's smile never wavered, but her eyes were cold as ice. We agreed to exactly what they offered us, she said quietly. Nothing more, nothing less. Jake wasn't sure what she meant by that, but he had a feeling this was just the beginning of a much longer and more complicated game. 3 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council, and Captain Jake Morrison was starting to understand what their membership really meant. He stood in the cargo bay of the U's Harmony, watching his crew load supplies onto automated transport ships that would carry them to the far edges of the galaxy. Another delivery run to the Outer Rim, Commander Ryan Brooks said as he joined Jake. That's the 4th one this week. They're treating us like glorified delivery. Boys, Jake nodded grimly. The transportation duties the Council had assigned to humanity turned out to be hauling cargo to places too dangerous or too boring for other species to bother with. Empty asteroid fields, dead planets, and abandoned mining stations were their usual destinations. Dr. Lisa Parker walked over carrying a datapad, her face showing frustration. I just tried to access the Council's medical database again, she said. They told me that primitive species might misunderstand the information and hurt themselves. What did you want to look up? Jake asked. The Zephyrian crystal rot disease? Lisa replied. I've been studying the samples they gave us, and I think I know what's causing it. But every time I try to share my findings, they pat me on the head and tell me to stick to basic first aid. Ryan laughed bitterly. At least they talked to you. When I asked about the security briefings, Crystal told me that humans don't have the mental capacity to understand real military strategy. Jake felt his anger rising, but he pushed it down. Ambassador Helen Carter had made it clear that they needed to be patient and prove themselves worthy of respect. But 3 months of being treated like children was wearing on everyone. Lieutenant Sam Collins hurried over to them with his communication equipment. Captain, I've been monitoring the Council's communication channels like you asked. You need to hear this. Sam activated a recording device, and they heard Chancellor Veltar S. musical voice speaking to someone in the Zephyrian language. Sam had learned to translate it over the past few months. The humans are even more useful than we expected, Veltar was saying. They work hard, they don't complain, and they're actually quite good at the boring tasks we don't want to do. Their ships are slow but reliable. Another voice responded, this one belonging to the jellyfish creature they had met on the first day. Should we give them any real responsibilities yet? Why would we do that? Veltar laughed. They're perfectly happy being our servants. Let them haul cargo and clean stations for a few decades. Maybe then we'll consider giving them slightly better jobs. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. Ryan's face went dark with anger. Lisa looked like she had been slapped. There's more, Sam said quietly. He played another recording. This time it was Crystal's grinding voice. The human colonies have been attacked by raiders again. They're asking for help. Let me guess, Veltar replied. They want us to send warships to protect them. Of course. They do. What should I tell them? Tell them that internal security is their responsibility. If they can't protect themselves, perhaps they shouldn't have colonies in dangerous areas. Jake's jaw tightened. Those raids had killed over 300 people, including families and children. The Council had the power to stop the attacks. Easily, but they didn't care enough to bother. Keep listening, Sam said. This is where it gets really interesting. The recording continued with Crystal speaking to someone else. The humans have been asking about defensive weapons. They want to buy some of our basic shield generators. For their cargo ships? A new voice asked. It sounded like wind chimes. So it was probably the jellyfish creature for their colonies. They're tired of being raided. We can't sell them real weapons, Veltar's voice joined the conversation. They might get ideas above their station. But we could offer them our peacekeeping services. What kind of services? Crystal asked. We station our ships in their territory to protect them. In exchange, they pay us a fee. Something reasonable, like 60% of their mining output. The 3 aliens laughed together like they had just told a great joke. Jake turned off the recording and looked at his crew. They're planning to take over our colonies by charging us for protection we don't need? It's worse than that, Lisa said quietly. I've been analyzing the gifts they've given us. The medical supplies are basically useless. The food they send is barely nutritious, and the technical manuals they provide are missing all the important information. They're keeping us weak on purpose, Ryan added. Every time we try to improve ourselves, they find a way to stop us. Jake made a decision. Sam, can you set up a secure communication channel to Earth? I need to talk to Admiral Stone. Already done, Captain. I've been working on it for weeks. The Council thinks we're just sending routine reports, but I've been building a quantum encryption system they can't monitor. 20 minutes later, Jake sat in his private quarters with a direct line to Earth. Admiral Patricia Stone appeared on his screen, her gray hair and stern expression exactly as he remembered. Jake, she said without preamble, I hope you're calling with good news, because things are getting complicated here. What's happening on Earth? Jake asked. The Council sent us a trade agreement. They want exclusive rights to all our mining operations in exchange for advanced technology that turns out to be garbage. They also want to place advisors in our government to help us make better decisions. Jake felt his stomach drop. They're trying to take over Earth itself. That's what we figured. How are things going on your end? Jake told her everything. The condescending treatment, the meaningless jobs, the refusal to provide real help, and the overheard conversations about exploiting humanity. When he finished, Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment. Jake, I'm about to tell you something. That doesn't leave this conversation. Earth has been preparing for this possibility since the day the aliens first contacted us. What do you mean? We knew this was too good to be true. Advanced aliens don't just invite primitive species to join their club out of kindness, so we've been working on some projects. Admiral Stone's expression grew cold. Those colony ships we've been sending out, they're not just colonies. Each one is a mobile military base with weapons the Council has never seen. We've been studying alien technology for months, and we've found ways to improve it. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How many ships? 47, positioned throughout the galaxy. Each one is staffed with our best military personnel and equipped with weapons that can crack planets if necessary. What about the Council's military? We've been watching them. They're impressive in parades, but they haven't fought a real war in centuries. Their tactics are outdated, their formations are ceremonial, and their weapons are designed for show rather than effectiveness. Jake leaned back in his chair. So what's the plan? Right now, we're still gathering information. Your job is to keep playing the role of grateful servants while we finish our preparations. But Jake, if they push us too far, we're ready to push back. The communication ended, and Jake sat in silence for several minutes. He thought about the alien voices laughing about humanity's weakness. They had no idea what they were dealing with. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Ambassador Helen Carter entered, and Jake noticed that her usual diplomatic smile was gone. Captain, we need to talk, she said. The Council just sent us new orders. They want us to relocate our colonies to systems they control? They're calling it protective resettlement for our own safety. And if we refuse, they'll do it anyway, for the good of our species. Helen's eyes were cold as winter. They also want to place Council observers on Earth to help us govern ourselves properly. Jake stood up. Helen, I think it's time we stopped being so polite. Helen's smile returned, but it wasn't the warm, diplomatic expression she usually wore. This smile was sharp and dangerous. I was hoping you'd say that, she said. I've been playing the grateful servant for 3 months, and I'm getting tired of it. These aliens think they're so much smarter than us, but they've made one critical mistake. What's that? They assumed we're actually as helpless as we pretend to be. Helen moved to the window and looked out at the space station. I think it's time we showed them what happens when humanity stops being polite. Jake felt a grim satisfaction. The Council had pushed them too far, and now they were about to learn that humans could be much more dangerous than they appeared. What's our first move? He asked. Helen turned back to him, and her expression was harder than steel. We're going to request a formal meeting with the full council. We're going to tell them exactly what we think of their generous offer. And if they don't listen, then we'll show them why it's a bad idea to underestimate humanity, Jake nodded. The time for diplomacy was ending. Soon, the council would see what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the UES Harmony's war room, a section of the ship that no council member had ever seen. The polite masks were finally coming off, and his crew looked different than they had 3 months ago. The diplomatic smiles were gone, replaced by cold determination. "Show me what we've really got," Jake said to his team. Dr. Lisa Parker activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. "While they've been treating us like primitive children, I've been analyzing every piece of their technology. The truth is, Captain, we're not behind them. We're different." The display showed comparative charts between human and alien technology. They focused on energy manipulation and exotic matter for thousands of years. We focused on kinetic weapons, adaptive artificial intelligence, and biological enhancement. Look at this. Lisa pulled up medical scans. Their immune systems are weak because they've relied on technology for so long. Our medical advances aren't primitive. They're actually centuries ahead of most council species. We've been solving problems they gave up on long ago. Commander Ryan Brooks stepped forward with his own data. "I've been studying their military operations. They're impressive to look at, but they're soft. They haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Their tactics are ceremonial, their equipment is standardized, and their strategy is completely predictable." Ryan activated another display showing council fleet movements. They move in perfect formations that look beautiful but create massive weak points. They use the same battle plans over and over. Most importantly, they've never faced an enemy that thinks like humans do. Lieutenant Sam Collins looked up from his communication station. "Captain, I've been monitoring their internal communications. They're planning something big. The Council is going to demand that all human colonies be relocated to systems under their direct control. They're calling it the Human Resettlement Initiative." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "When?" "Next week." "They've, already prepared the orders. Any human settlement that refuses will be relocated by force for their own protection." Ambassador Helen Carter entered the war room, but she looked completely different than she had during their diplomatic meetings. Gone was the gracious diplomat. In her place stood a woman with steel in her eyes and ice in her voice. "I just received a message from Earth," Helen said. "The Council has delivered their final demands. They want 60% of our planet's resources, Council advisors in our government, and all human military forces to be disbanded and replaced with Council peacekeepers. And if we refuse?" Jake asked. "They'll take what they want anyway. For the good of our primitive species, of course." Helen's voice was bitter. "They've given us 72 hours to comply." Jake looked around the room at his crew. These people had spent 3 months bowing and scraping to aliens who treated them like servants. But now he could see the truth in their eyes. They were done being polite. "Sam, open a quantum channel to Admiral Stone, full encryption." The communication system activated and Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main screen. She looked grim but determined. "Jake, I assume you've heard about the Council's demands." "Yes, Admiral. Are we ready to respond?" "We've been ready for weeks. Those colony ships I told you about, they're in position throughout the galaxy. Each one is equipped with weapon systems the Council has never seen. We've also been preparing some surprises here on Earth." Admiral Stone's expression grew cold. "The Council thinks they know everything about human technology because we've been showing them our oldest, most basic equipment. They have no idea what we're really capable of. What's the plan?" "You're going to request a formal meeting with the full Council. Tell them you want to discuss their generous resettlement offer. When you get in front of them, you're going to show them exactly what happens when humanity stops being polite." Jake felt a grim smile cross his face. "What about the response?" "Leave that to us. We've been preparing for this moment since the day they first contacted us. The Council is about to learn that humans can be much more dangerous than they appear. The communication ended and Jake looked at his team. You heard the Admiral. Helen, can you get us a meeting with the full Council? Already done, Helen said with a cold smile. I sent the request an hour ago. They accepted immediately. They think we're going to beg for mercy. When? Tomorrow morning? All 12 Council species will be present. They want to watch the primitive humans grovel, Jake nodded. Good, Lisa. I want you to prepare a presentation about our medical capabilities, real ones, not the basic stuff we've been showing them. What about operational security? Lisa asked. Forget operational security. Tomorrow we show them everything. Ryan, I want you to prepare a tactical analysis of their military weaknesses. Don't hold back. Ryan's smile was sharp as a blade. It'll be my pleasure, Captain. Jake turned to Sam. I want you to prepare recordings of every insult, every dismissal, and every condescending comment they've made about humans over the past 3 months. It's time the galaxy heard what the Council really thinks of the species. They claim to protect. Already done, Captain. I've got hours of material. Jake looked at Helen. And you, Ambassador, are going to tell them exactly what we think of their generous offers. Helen's diplomatic smile returned, but it was different now. Cold and dangerous. I've been looking forward to this conversation for months. The next 18 hours passed quickly. The crew of the Harmony worked through the night preparing for the meeting that would change everything. Jake found himself unable to sleep, thinking about what they were about to do. For 3 months, they had played the role of grateful servants. Tomorrow, they would show the Council who they really were. The morning of the meeting, Jake stood before his crew in the shuttle bay. They were all dressed in their formal uniforms, but something was different about them. They stood straighter, looked sharper, and moved with the confidence of people who were done pretending to be weak. Today we stop being polite, Jake said. Today we show them what humans are really capable of. Remember, we're not just representing ourselves. We're representing every human who has ever been dismissed, underestimated, or treated as inferior. The crew nodded with grim determination. They boarded the shuttle and headed for the Council station. When they arrived at the Council chambers, Jake noticed that all 12 species were present. The Zephyrians sat in their crystal thrones, looking smug. The Vorthek enforcers stood at attention, ready to deal with any trouble. The jellyfish creatures floated in their tanks, and the other species filled their respective sections. Chancellor Veltar rose from his throne as the humans entered. Welcome, humans. We understand you wish to discuss our generous resettlement offer. We are pleased that you have come to your senses. Helen stepped forward, but she didn't bow. She didn't smile. She looked directly at Veltar with eyes like winter storms. We've been patient, Helen said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We've been polite. We followed your rules and accepted your scraps, but we've also been watching, learning, and preparing. The Council members shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the submissive human they expected. You've made one critical mistake, Helen continued. You assumed we were actually as helpless as we pretended to be. Veltar's glowing eyes flickered with confusion. What are you talking about, primitive human? Helen's smile was sharp as a knife. Primitive? Let me show you just how primitive we are. She signaled to Lisa, who activated the holographic display system. The chamber filled with images of human medical facilities, research laboratories, and technological achievements that made the Council's equipment look ancient. Your crystal rot disease? Lisa said, stepping forward. We solved it 3 months ago. The Vorthak reproductive plague? We have a cure. The Milari neural degradation? Also solved. We've been treating your incurable diseases while you told us we were too primitive to understand basic science. The Council members stared in shock at the displays. Several of them began talking at once in their native languages. Impossible, Veltar said. You're just a young species. You can't have technology more advanced than ours. Ryan stepped forward with his military analysis. Your fleets are impressive in parades, but they're designed for show, not warfare. Your formations are ceremonial, your weapons are standardized. Your tactics haven't changed in 1,000 years because you haven't faced real opposition. The chamber erupted in outrage. The Vorthic enforcers moved forward, but Helen raised her hand. I wouldn't do that if I were you, she said calmly. Sam, show them what we've been recording. Sam activated the audio system, and the chamber filled with the council's own voices. 3 months of recorded conversations where they laughed about humanity's weakness, planned to exploit their resources, and discussed treating humans as slaves with fancy titles. You've been recording our private communications? Veltar demanded. Every word, Helen said. And in about 5 minutes, every species in the galaxy is going to hear exactly what you think of the civilizations you claim to protect. Jake stepped forward for the final blow. You wanted to know what humans can offer to your ancient and wise civilization? Here's what we offer. The truth. The truth about what you really are, and the truth about what we really are. The chamber fell silent. The council members looked. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Alien voices shouted in dozens of different languages as the 12 ruling species tried to understand what had just happened. Chancellor Veltar's crystal skin flickered with angry red light, while the massive Vorthic enforcers moved closer to the human delegation. Silence! Veltar commanded, his musical voice now harsh and threatening. You dare to spy on the council? You dare to threaten us with your primitive recordings? Ambassador Helen Carter stood calmly in the center of the chamber, completely unafraid. Primitive? You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Dr. Lisa Parker stepped forward and activated another holographic display. This one showed detailed scans of the council station itself. While you've been calling us primitive, we've been analyzing your technology. Your power systems are inefficient. Your life support is overcomplicated. Your defensive shields have 17 major weak points. Impossible, the jellyfish creature said in its wind chime voice. Our technology has been perfected over thousands of years? Perfected for what? Commander Ryan Brooks asked. Looking impressive? Because that's all it does. Your weapons are designed for ceremonies, not combat. Your ships are built for parades, not war. You've been playing dress-up for so long that you forgot how to actually fight. Crixtal, the massive Vorthic enforcer, stepped forward with his claws extended. Enough talk. These humans will be arrested for espionage and sedition. I really wouldn't do that, Captain Jake Morrison said quietly. Sam, show them what's happening in the galaxy right now. Lieutenant Sam Collins activated the main communication array, and the chamber's displays lit up with dozens of feeds from across the galaxy. Each screen showed the same thing, council ships disappearing in brilliant flashes of light. What is this? Veltar demanded, his voice rising in panic. That's your enforcement fleet being destroyed, Jake said calmly. Those harmless human colony ships you've been ignoring? Each one is a mobile weapons platform equipped with technology you've never seen. The displays showed the true nature of humanity's colony ships. Sleek vessels unfolded massive weapon arrays that fired beams of concentrated energy. Council ships, caught completely off guard, exploded one after another. You see, Helen explained conversationally, while you were treating us like servants, we were studying your military tactics. Every patrol route, every defensive position, every weak point in your formations. We've been preparing for this moment since the day we arrived. One of the council members, a plant-like creature with multiple flowering heads, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. This is an act of war. You're attacking peaceful vessels. Ryan laughed bitterly. Peaceful? These are the same ships that refused to help when raiders attacked our colonies. The same ships that were coming to force our people into your concentration camps. Don't talk to us about peace. The displays continued, showing the destruction of council forces throughout the galaxy. But then something else appeared on the screens, smaller alien ships joining the fight alongside the humans. What are those vessels? Veltar asked, his voice now trembling. Those, Sam said with satisfaction, are ships from the 47. Species you've been keeping under your boot for centuries. Funny thing about oppressed people, when they see their oppressors getting beaten, they tend to join the fight. Jake stepped closer to the council platform. You know what your biggest mistake was? It wasn't underestimating our technology. It wasn't ignoring our capabilities. Your biggest mistake was thinking that everyone in the galaxy was as comfortable with oppression as you are. Helen activated her personal communication device. Sam, please broadcast those recordings now. Across the galaxy, every communication channel suddenly carried the same transmission. 3 months of recorded conversations where the council members laughed about the weakness of other species, planned to exploit their resources, and discussed keeping entire civilizations as slaves. The effect was immediate. On every world controlled by the council, alien populations that had been quiet for centuries suddenly rose up in rebellion. The carefully maintained order that had kept the galaxy under council control for thousands of years crumbled in a matter of hours. You're destroying everything we've built? A jellyfish creature wailed. The galaxy will fall into chaos. The galaxy will fall into freedom, Lisa corrected. There's a difference. Veltar tried to regain control of the situation. Even if you destroy our fleets, you cannot possibly govern 63 species. You don't have the infrastructure, the experience, or the authority. Helen's smile was cold as space. Who said anything about governing? We don't want to rule anyone. We want to trade with them, learn from them, and grow alongside them as equals. That's impossible, Crystal growled. Species need strong leadership. Without the Council's guidance, they will fight each other and destroy themselves. Maybe some of them will, Jake admitted. But that's their choice to make. Freedom includes the freedom to make mistakes. The chamber's displays showed more scenes. From across the galaxy, on world after world, alien populations were celebrating in the streets. Council governors were being arrested or fleeing. Centuries of accumulated resentment were finally being released, but not all the news was good. Several Council loyalist fleets were fighting back, and some worlds were indeed descending into chaos as different factions tried to seize power. Look at what you've done, Veltar said, pointing at the scenes of conflict. This is why the galaxy needs strong leadership. This is why primitive species cannot be trusted with freedom. You're right about one thing, Helen said. The galaxy does need leadership, but it needs leadership that serves the people, not leadership that exploits them. She activated another communication channel, and Admiral Stone's voice filled the chamber. This is Admiral Patricia, Stone of the Earth Defense Force. I'm speaking to every species in the galaxy that wants to be free. The Admiral's message continued. The Galactic Council's rule is over, but we're not here to replace one tyranny with another. Any species that wants to join us in building a better galaxy is welcome. Any species that wants to go its own way is free to do so. And any species that tries to recreate the Council's system of oppression will find that humans have very long memories and very effective weapons. Veltar slumped in his crystal throne. You've doomed the galaxy to centuries of war. No, Jake said firmly. We've given the galaxy a chance at centuries of peace. Real peace, built on mutual respect instead of fear. Ryan stepped forward with a datapad. We've been analyzing the Council's records. Did you know that in the past 1,000 years you've destroyed over 200 species that refused to submit to your rule? Species that might have contributed amazing things to galactic civilization, wiped out because they wouldn't bow to your authority? The Council members fell silent. Several of them looked uncomfortable, as if they were remembering things they'd prefer to forget. Lisa activated one final display. We've also found records of the species you've been slowly killing through neglect and exploitation. 43 different civilizations that are dying because you've taken their resources and given them nothing in return. We can save them, she continued. Our medical technology, combined with their knowledge and our resources, can bring those species back from the edge of extinction, but only if they're free to make their own choices about their futures. Helen looked around the chamber at the 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for so long. You have a choice to make. You can try to fight us and rebuild your empire of oppression, Or you can join us in building something better. And if we refuse? Veltar asked. Then you'll find out why it's a bad idea to make enemies of a species that holds grudges for generations and has weapons that can crack planets. Jake said quietly. The chamber fell silent except for the distant sounds of celebration from the communication feeds. The age of the Galactic Council was ending, and the age of something new was beginning. Think carefully about your answer, Helen said, because this is the only offer you're going to get. The council members looked at each other with fear and uncertainty. For the first time in thousands of years, they were not the ones with all the power. The galaxy was changing, and they could either change with it or be left behind. The humans waited patiently for their response. They had all the time in the world. 6 hours had passed since humanity's ultimatum, and the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Most of the 12 ruling species had fled to their homeworlds, leaving only a few representatives behind. Chancellor Veltar sat slumped. In his crystal throne, his glowing skin dim and flickering. The massive Vorthak enforcer Krikstal stood nearby, his claws retracted and his posture showing defeat. Captain Jake Morrison watched the tactical displays that showed the state of the galaxy. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had expected. On world after world, alien populations were overthrowing their council-appointed governors. Some transitions were peaceful, with local leaders simply announcing their independence. Others were violent, as centuries of anger finally exploded into revolution. Status report, Jake said to Lieutenant Sam Collins. 47 council fleets have been destroyed or have surrendered, Sam reported. 18 species have officially declared independence from the council. Another 23 are in various stages of rebellion. Only 12 species are still loyal to the old system. Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her medical scanner. I'm reading massive stress indicators from the remaining council members. Several of them are showing signs of complete psychological breakdown. Ambassador Helen Carter stood in the center of the chamber, no longer the polite diplomat who had arrived 3 months ago. She had become something harder, more dangerous. But her voice remained calm and professional. Chancellor Veltar, she said, have you made your decision? The Zephyrian leader looked up with eyes that had lost their inner light. What choice do we have? You've destroyed everything we built. Thousands of years of order and stability, gone in a single day. You built that order on the backs of enslaved species, Commander Ryan Brooks said firmly. You maintained that stability by crushing anyone who disagreed with you. Don't expect us to feel sorry that it's over. Krikstal stepped forward, his voice like grinding stone. The Vorthak have decided to surrender. We will return to our home world and rebuild our civilization without the council structure. Jake nodded with respect. That's a wise choice. We have no quarrel with species that want to govern themselves peacefully. One by one, the remaining council members announced their surrenders. Some, like the Vorthak, chose to return home and start over. Others asked to join the new alliance that humanity was offering. A few simply vanished, fleeing to unknown parts of the galaxy. Veltar was the last to speak. The Zephyrian Empire formally surrenders to the human alliance. We request ... We request mercy for our people. Helen's expression softened slightly. We're not conquerors, Chancellor. We don't want to destroy your people. We want them to be free to choose their own path. But the trials, Veltar said fearfully. Surely there will be trials for our crimes. There will be accountability, Jake said firmly. The species you've oppressed deserve justice. But that justice will be decided by the victims, not by us. Sam activated the communication array, and Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Jake could see the lights of Earth cities twinkling in the night. Jake, how's the situation there? The Admiral asked. The Council has surrendered. Most of their fleets are destroyed or have switched sides. The galaxy is in chaos, but it's the good kind of chaos. Admiral Stone smiled grimly. We're getting reports from all over. 26 species have already sent diplomatic messages asking to join our alliance. 15 others want to establish trade agreements. And 3 species we'd never heard of have revealed themselves from hiding, saying they've been waiting centuries for the Council to fall. What about Earth? Helen asked. The Council's demands have been formally rejected. Their advisors have been escorted off the planet and their trade agreements have been cancelled. We're free to govern ourselves again. Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. What's the plan moving forward? We're setting up a new organization, Admiral Stone explained. Not a council that rules from above, but a federation where each species has an equal voice. Membership is voluntary and any species can leave at any time. Lisa stepped forward with excitement in her voice. Admiral, the medical possibilities are incredible. 17 different species have offered to share their knowledge with us. We could eliminate disease throughout the galaxy within a generation. And the military situation? Ryan asked. Stable for now, Admiral Stone replied. Most former Council species are too busy rebuilding to cause trouble. The few that are still hostile are being contained by our mobile fleets. The communication ended, and Jake looked around the chamber. The once mighty Council was gone, replaced by empty thrones and scattered aliens trying to figure out what came next. So what happens now? Veltar asked quietly. Helen considered the question carefully. Now we build something better. A galaxy where species cooperate because they want to, not because they're forced to. Where knowledge is shared freely instead of hoarded by the powerful. Where no one species gets to decide the fate of all the others. And if some species choose war? Crystal asked. Then they'll learn what the Council learned today, Jake said firmly. Humans have very long memories, and we protect our friends. Over the next several hours, the humans worked with the surrendering Council members to organize the transition. Lists of oppressed species were compiled. Records of crimes were gathered. Plans were made for returning stolen resources and freeing enslaved populations. Dr. Parker was particularly busy, working with alien medical experts to address the health crises that had been ignored under Council rule. The Muari neural degradation, the Zephyrian crystal rot, the Vorthak reproductive plague. All of these could be treated with human medical technology. Commander Brooks coordinated with the growing Alliance fleet, making sure that hostile forces couldn't take advantage of the chaos to attack vulnerable worlds. Several former Council colonies were already under protection from human and allied forces. As the work continued, Jake found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them to this point. 3 months ago, they had arrived as humble supplicants, grateful for any scraps the Council might throw them. Now they were reshaping the entire galaxy. Captain, Sam called out. We're getting a transmission from the Outer Rim. It's from the Nexari, one of the species the Council declared extinct 50 years ago. Jake raised his eyebrows. They're alive? Very much so. They've been hiding in dead systems, keeping their civilization alive in secret. They want to thank us for destroying the Council and ask if they can join our alliance. Helen smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a genuine expression of joy rather than diplomatic politeness. Tell them they're welcome. The galaxy has room for everyone now. As the day ended, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Harmony, looking out at the space station that had once been the symbol of Council power. Already, work crews from dozens of different species were converting it into a meeting place for the new Federation. Helen joined him at the window. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked. We gave 63 species the freedom to choose their own destinies, Jake replied. Some of them will make mistakes. Some might even go to war with each other. But at least now it's their choice to make. The Council will say we destroyed galactic peace. The Council created galactic slavery and called it peace, Jake said firmly. Real peace can't exist without freedom. Helen nodded and activated her personal communicator. This is Ambassador Carter to all human diplomatic missions. Phase 1 is complete. The Council has fallen. Begin Phase 2, building the Federation. Jake smiled as he watched ships from dozens of species arrive at the station. They came not as subjects bringing tribute to their masters, but as equals ready to build something new together. You know, he said to Helen, I think this is going to work. It better, Helen replied with a grin. Because we just convinced the entire galaxy that humans can be trusted to keep their promises. Jake laughed. Then we'd better make sure we keep them. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of the Galactic Federation had begun. And at its heart stood humanity, no longer pretending to be weak, but choosing to use their strength. To lift others up rather than tear them down, the galaxy would never be the same again.